Welcome to Reality Tea Times 2, the podcast where we discuss all the trash reality TV we love to hate. I'm Tanika, and today we are going to be discussing Love is Blind. So usually what we do for the Netflix binges, we don't usually do anything on top of the episode. We just jump right into the show. So let's get into the reason that we are here. Love is Blind, Season 5, Episode 1. You're a recent cheater? ? So we see none other than Vanessa and Nick. And we see them both going to the different lounges and, telling them the usual stuff we normally see. Not going to get into it. But apparently somebody here wants to ask the really, important questions like, would you suck my toe and are you in therapy? I think it was one of the women that said that. Anyway. And of course we get the same usual thing we get from Nick. Will you walk away forever? Whatever. And is love truly blind? Okay. But enough of this now. Let's get into the pods. So in the beginning of this with the episodes, because I'm still trying to get a handle on who are we focusing on with the show, right? So my notes might be all over the place a little bit, but I get a handle on them eventually. So we see JP. He's doing yoga on the floor, apparently. We see that this guy whose occupation is fisherman, he likes to fish for fun. That's like the equivalent of what's his face on Match Me Abroad, who likes to cut grass for fun. One guy asks somebody, I can't remember who would he marry, fuck, or kill? And he is talking about foods. The person's like, the fuck? Some guy burped on his date. One guy thinks that Lydia is not a horny person. So then we are learning about Lydia. Lydia tells us that people have kind of told her that she's too much. I initially said, I like her. This will change. So she says that she's a geologist. And we see her really vibing with this guy who's an engineer, whose name I don't know. I can't remember who this was. Starting to wonder if it was Uche. And for those who haven't watched all the episodes or don't usually watch the episodes, you'll know why I say that, but I'm wondering if it's him, which makes it even fucking worse. Anyway. But she keeps calling this guy a nerd. And then it might have been Milton. It could have been Milton that she was talking to. Maybe not Uche, but anyway, she's calling him a nerd. Yes, it definitely was Milton because I wrote here, she's 30 and he's 24. That's Milton. Then she has a date with Izzy, who is Mexican. So what I didn't mention here is Lydia is Puerto Rican, so they have connected on the fact that they're both Spanish-speaking people. So he's 29, so she's happy with the age. Is much better than Milton, who's 24. She thinks that he's perfect. And she asks, when are you going to propose? Spoiler alert, never. Now we're learning about Izzy. He says that his insecurity is the fact that he's bald. Apparently someone who saw that he was bald said ew when he took his hat off. So now we know why Gino keeps his hat on. So he goes on a date with this blonde chick who loves that he's direct. I believe I said this might have been Stacy. But then we see he then goes on a date with Johnny. She's a lawyer. I also liked her. I need to rethink shit because that too changes. Anyway, she says that she was in a relationship 6 months prior. But she says that she also dates guys who have addiction issues. So we find out that Izzy has actually been engaged before. And Johnny was actually married before. And she says that she doesn't want a guy to think that they are just kind of like this quote unquote second husband, that they're not, I know, but I know what you're trying to say here. Um, Johnny's mom says maybe she is just not meant to be in a relationship, which makes her feel really bad. Um, but this is her mom apparently says this due to her track record with men. Um, so Johnny says to somebody, I'm not sure who she said this to, but he said to somebody that my job sounds sexy, but I just read contracts all day. Now, as a person who works for a lawyer and works in a law firm, there's nothing sexy about it. But let's move on. Um, so anyway, that's kind of it. The pods are closed now. We kind of have this hodgepodge of different people. So we kind of say everyone should celebrate the first day in the pods. We see this guy named Ernesto, who we never see again. He burps. Stacy says she made the guy do yoga. That would have been JP. She thinks that Milton is the awkward date. I can see where she says in that. And she says her number one is Izzy. And it kind of looks like Izzy's going to be that popular guy that we always get in every season, who kind of has at least one, like 2 or 3 different women kind of pining over him. So day 2. And I wrote here that there was eggs on the floor. Did I write that wrong? I think I wrote that wrong. Anyways, maybe there was eggs on the floor. I just don't remember. So Taylor, we meet Taylor. She's a teacher. She's 25. Taylor struggled with not loving herself, but now she says that she does. She goes on a date with JP. And like I said, she's a teacher. She's a kindergarten teacher. She says that she was drawn to JP from the first meeting that they had. JP comes out of that date saying he would propose to her right now. So this couple is kind of like the Lauren and Cameron of 90 Day. Oh, 90 Day. Jesus, Love is Blind. This is it. This is them. This is the Brett and God, why can't I remember their names? I literally it doesn't matter. That they're the couple. They're the couple. So now we're with Uche. Uche is 30, and he too is a lawyer. He goes on a date with Miriam. She's from Ontario. Miriam. We barely see her again. But anyway, she works in medicine. Good for her. She used to, well, okay, I say good for her, but I remember who this is now. She's making Ontarians look real bad. She used to live in the Middle East, but now she's back now. And then we kind of see like she kind of like, like he says like, okay, so when are you gonna move back? Like and she's like, well, I'm trying to move to Texas. And he's like, oh, okay. Like when? He's like, oh, but I already did. He's like, huh. That's the end of that date. Then we meet Aaliyah. Aaliyah, she tells us that she used to live in Japan for 9 years because her parents were in the Air Force. We also find out here that Uche also owns a software company. Interesting. Especially the women's quarters. They are not planning to ask any of the men how many women that they have been with, because it doesn't matter. As long as everyone is clean, but experienced. Wink, wink. Aaliyah says, you have to ask those questions because she has to ask those questions because she knows her sex drive. Amen to that. I mean, sure. Then we kind of get a montage of similar type sexual questions. So I'm not going to go through all of that. Justice. because I am going through a little bit of that. Justice, who again we never see again, he says I'm pretty sure he said fellatio, and I'm like, that's not the right one, but I'm going to assume he meant cunnilingus. It's one of his good talents, he says. Okay. We have another one asking about favorite sex positions. Then we start talking about Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Oh, I love Ryan Reynolds. I'm okay with Blake Lively. I haven't watched a lot of stuff with her, but I don't dislike her. Anyway, the same person who guys was talking about Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively says that she is good at guessing someone's shoe size. Great. This is actually Stacy. Stacy is the one who says she's good at guessing people's shoe sizes. Izzy seems to be really vibing with Stacy and Johnny. And Johnny says that she's shy in the bedroom. And she says that she does have a connection with Izzy. Or she has connections, sorry. But the connection she has with Izzy is the strongest. So then we see Johnny's going on a date with Chris. Okay. So then we kind of start talking about losing virginity and stuff like that. She says she lost hers in high school. And then we kind of get into his story. So before I go into his story, guys, trigger warning for sexual assault, rape. This is going to be sensitive. So I will put a trigger warning in the show notes as always with this. And I will put the timestamps in so you know when to bypass. So he says that he would tell people that he lost his virginity in high school, but then he starts talking about how that's not quite the truth. I mean, bottom line, it's not the truth. He says that he went on a trip to Mexico. I'm assuming he went on a trip to Mexico with other schoolmates or something similar to that. And he says that this girl at the end of one of the nights that there forced herself onto him, and that is how he lost his virginity. This is sick. But I'm happy to see that he's comfortable enough to have this conversation, because I think we, as a society, we are definitely focused on advocating for women who are put in these situations because it's so important, but it's also very important to shed light on the fact that men have this happen to them as well and are put in vulnerable situations like this. And in this case, he was raped. So it's very sad. I'm yeah, that's horrible. Shame on her. I hope she's watching this show and saying, shit. You know what I mean? That's horrible. Anyway, he says that he told her no, but she continued to go on top of him. And yeah, Johnny says that she's sorry that that happened to him, especially for your first time. And he said he felt comfortable enough to tell her this. So that's really good. So now we're with Lydia and Izzy. And he says that he is a people pleaser. Both are detail oriented. She says, I feel like we have a lot in common. Do you feel that way? He says, yeah. And she says that he is her number one. And he says that he has been making connections. And asks, like, have you been making connections with other people? She says, yeah, but not like with Izzy. And he leaves and she says, I hope to see you in my dreams. He just says, bye. So now Uche and Aaliyah. She wants to be her artistic self. She wants to write poetry, which is something apparently he also did. He actually went to spoken word poetry, I think when he was in college, he said. And he says he wants to get back into it. And he said he also played the guitar, something she also does. And she says now she wants to kiss him. So we see that they're connecting on the artistic side of things. Taylor and JP are going on a date, and she tells him to do push-ups to her name. So he literally does 6 push-ups. And then she also does push-ups to his name, which is just JP. So next, we see Lydia talks to Stacy about Izzy being her number one. Stacy is staying tight-lipped about who her number one is, who she's connecting with. She doesn't want to have those conversations with anybody. But as we know, she is also connecting with Izzy. So then Stacy goes to talk to Izzy. Actually, it might not have been Stacy. It might have actually been Lydia. Does it happen already? Sorry, guys, my notes are a little all over the place. But yeah, I'm thinking, yeah, this was definitely Lydia, because I wrote next, he breaks up with her. He says that his connection with others is stronger than it is with her. She asks what is missing, and he says he thinks it's just the chemistry. Then she starts crying, y'all. He can hear her clearly. She doesn't understand where this is all coming from. She says she was excited to talk to him. And then she says, good luck with your other people. And she leaves. And she just kind of walks into the lounge crying, and Aaliyah comforts her. I thought it was a very strong reaction to something that she, like, I don't even know how many days they were in this, 3, 4. That's what it felt like. Like it was such a strong reaction for just a few days. I do understand that she feels kind of rejected by people because they think that she's too much, quote unquote. But I think there might be a little more to that than what she's telling us. But anyway, so then Aaliyah and Uche go on a date. She has doubts, and she wants to challenge on whether or not he knows like she's it. And he tells her, you're my girl, and I am leaving with you. Uche asks if she has ever cheated. She says that she did 2 years ago after not being sexually satisfied in a 2-year relationship. He says, you're a recent cheater. Name, title of the episode. She says she tried everything morally right before she ended up cheating. She says she talked to him. And then Uche asks her, did you tell him that you cheated? And she says no. And he asks why. And she says, I didn't want to hurt him. I knew it was wrong. And he says, what is it about him? I think that's what he said. Anyways, she says that, it wasn't about me. I had dealt with my guilt, because he's kind of just saying like, it's more about you. That's why you didn't tell him. That's what I meant to say. He says, I think you didn't tell him because you were embarrassed and you didn't want to deal with it. She says, I hated myself for doing it. She says, why tell him when he's starting his career? He says, because it would have made you honest. I hate that. And I think he would have wanted to know. How do you know what he wanted to know? You don't know him? Stop projecting whatever shit you got going on onto the situation. He says, I cheated, but I was like 18. Doubtful. I don't believe you for a second. He says, if I did it, I would have told them. So she was with this ex for about 3 months afterwards, because he does ask about whether or not they were still together after. She says, I am human. I have needs, and I should have stayed with him even though I wasn't happy. He says, no, you shouldn't have cheated. Eek. He says 2 years is not that long ago. And I wrote, I guess that's it for them, question mark. So she ends up leaving. But while she leaves, he says, you didn't have to tell me about it, but you did, and I appreciate it. But y'all, she has gone already. I don't even know if she heard that. And she's crying. So here's what I'll say about it. I'm not saying he has to be okay with the fact that she cheated. However, I don't understand where this is coming from. You can't project your shit onto other people. If she said that she dealt with it and she felt guilty for doing it, this was 2 years ago, then what is it to you? She says like I didn't agree with how he approached it. I do think that maybe that conversation has to be had, but I don't like how he approached it. And being judgmental. That wasn't required nor necessary, sir. Like, the hell is wrong with you? Anyway, we see he gets back to his quarters and he tells JP about what happened. He says it's hard, but also realizes that she didn't have to tell him anything and that should mean something. He's trying to see her perspective and thinks that he can look past it. Okay. Meanwhile, she is crying and a huge ball of mess. And she tells the girls what happened. And she says she doesn't want to be judged for it. Lydia says, do you want to marry someone who's going to judge you? And that, you shouldn't be with him. We're the same. We're the same person. Why would you want to subject yourself to that? These are the kind of things that she's saying. Lydia says that he needs to figure out his shit out, basically. And in this moment, I actually said this to Ava. In this moment, I felt like how she was talking to Aaliyah, and not only that, but how she was talking about Uche. I thought, I don't know how she could know him, but I feel like she knows more than just whatever she learned in the pods, because we don't really see them talking to each other. So as far as we know, she's only had one conversation with this guy. How did you get such a sense of this person in a day, in a conversation, a quick conversation, probably at that? It was confusing to me. And you'll know why I think that's confusing. But that's it for Love is Blind episode 1. I'm going to give you each episode as single episodes, but that's it for episode 1. So if you like what you heard, please share Reality Tea x2 with everyone in your life. That's going to help with our growth, and we really want to grow this podcast. Another way you can grow it is by also rating and reviewing us on either Apple Podcasts or Spotify. The links to those podcasts, links to the Spotify and Apple Podcasts, will be in the show notes. Also, you can find us on any of your favorite podcast apps, but if there is an app that you don't see us on, that you want to see us on, please let me know and I can get that up on that podcast app. If you are an avid YouTube user, you can listen to this podcast on YouTube by going to Reality Tea x2. If you want to connect with us, you can do so by connecting with us on either Facebook at Reality Tea x2 or Instagram and Threads at Reality Tea x2 podcast. You can also email us. We would love to hear from you. Also, if you want to guest on the podcast at some point, whether we talk about your favorite show or just get to know each other, you can email us at realitytea x2@hotmail.com, and you can make that request and we can talk and we can figure that out. So you can email us at that email. We have a new website where you can get links to everything. You can get links to our Facebook page, Instagram page, Threads, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, everything your heart's desire, as well as we do now have a Discord. So you can follow us and talk to us on the Discord app. You can get all of that information at the website, and the website is www.solo.to/reality times 2. I also have a new podcast with my friend Mikkel called Next Take Podcast, and you can either listen to us at YouTube at the link that's going to be in the show notes. I believe that is Next Take Podcast. And you can also go to our website. There you can have all the links to all of our social medias, email, everything. Our episodes as well will be at the website, which is www.solo.to/next take podcast. All of the information, everything that I have just said, will be in our show notes. Well, that's it for now, guys. Thanks. Bye.